Okay, so if you're in HR or you're a manager, you're going to want to listen to this. We're diving into a really critical distinction that a ton of employers miss when it comes to the Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA. And it's all about the difference between having a policy and having a process.
Let's just start with this quote, because honestly, it gets right to the heart of the whole issue. FMLA headaches? They don't usually pop up because you're missing a policy in your employee handbook. Nope. They happen because there's no defined, repeatable process in your day-to-day operations.
So what's the real difference here? Well, a policy, it's a static document. It just sits there. It's great at explaining rights, which is, of course, important. But a process? That's something else entirely. It's dynamic. It's a living system that actually guides action when life happens, you see? One is passive, the other is active. And that brings us to what I like to call the policy illusion. It's this super common belief that just having that written document means you're all set for compliance. So let's dig into why that is such a dangerous assumption to make. And look, to be fair, your FMLA policy has a job to do. It's fantastic at outlining the legal rights an employee has. It sets the baseline, it sets the rules, but that's where its job ends. Let's make this real. Imagine an employee just casually mentions in the hallway that they've got surgery scheduled for next month. That's a potential FMLA trigger right there. Does your policy document tell you or that employee's manager exactly what to do in that moment? Or what about this one? A manager overhears an employee talking about needing time off pretty regularly for some medical treatments. Again, that is a huge signal. But who's supposed to take the next step? And what even is that next step? The policy itself? It's silent. Oh, and this one is the big one. An employee is on approved intermittent leave, but their absences are getting really tough to track, and it's starting to affect the whole team's workflow. How are you supposed to manage that consistently fairly? Your policy offers zero roadmap for a situation that's constantly changing like this. So here's the bottom line. Your policy just doesn't have the answers to these real-world what do I do now questions. It's a reference guide, not an action plan. And relying on it to guide you in the moment, well, that's where everything starts to fall apart. So let's follow that thought. Let's see how this gap between policy and reality creates some really big problems. When you have that disconnect, specific things start to fail. Let's take a look at what they are. Does any of this sound a little too familiar? A manager hears about a surgery but doesn't realize, oh, I need to tell HR. Or those critical deadlines for getting paperwork in, they just get missed. Forms are sent out late, or worse, they're never sent at all. And all the important stuff, the doctor's notes, the emails, it all ends up scattered across a bunch of different inboxes instead of one safe central place. And there it is. This is the whole point. These failures, they aren't happening because your written policy is bad. They're happening because your system is broken. It's a failure of process because there's no clear, repeatable, and understood plan for everyone to follow. Okay, so that's the problem. How do we fix it? Well, the trick is to shift your thinking away from a static document and toward a living action plan. Let's talk about how to actually build a manageable FMLA system. First things first, we've got to realize that FMLA is not a one-and-done deal. It's not about just filing a form and then forgetting about it. No way. It requires constant tracking, consistent follow-up, especially with the messy parts like intermittent leave. It's an ongoing management job. And I love this because it makes the solution seem so much less overwhelming. Building a process doesn't have to be this huge, complicated thing. It really just comes down to these 4 pillars. 1. Define what happens the second a trigger is spotted. 2. Assign clear ownership. Is it HR's job, the manager's, who does what? 3. Get a reliable system in place to track every single deadline. And 4, the big one, create a single central home for all the documentation. Get these 4 things right and FMLA becomes so much more manageable. So let's wrap this all up. Moving from just having a policy to actually having a process, it's not just a nice to have or a best practice. It is an absolute must for real compliance and for managing your risk. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Good intentions are not a legal defense. You can have the best, most beautifully written policy in the world, but if you don't have a system to actually execute it every single time, your organization is totally vulnerable. So I'm going to leave you with this one final thought to really chew on for your own company. Take a good, hard look at how you handle FMLA. Is it just a document you can point to in a handbook? Or is it a living, breathing system that guides every single action? because the answer to that question could truly make all the difference.